Welcome back to the Childbirth Attorney podcast. I am your host, Gina Mundy, and today I have a special episode directed right towards dads. Dads, I got to tell you, as the childbirth attorney, I know that if you know certain information, it can help you and your wife have a healthy baby. I know you guys work hard prior to baby coming. You're getting the house ready. You're getting the nursery ready. And it's also important to get ready for childbirth to make sure at the end of the day, they're coming home with you. So this is the episode that you need to listen to. Now, you may be thinking, who's the childbirth attorney? What does she do? What gives her the knowledge base to be able to come in and show me or tell me what I need to know to help, make sure that, in the end, I do have a healthy baby. So I have been an attorney specializing in childbirth cases for 21 years. And just so you understand what that means I'm involved in cases involving the birth of a baby and something goes wrong, whether it's a mistake or it's a complication. Baby is not born healthy. Baby may pass away during childbirth, and in some sick cases, moms pass away during childbirth. As the attorney, I come in and I find out what happened, what went wrong, why, but more importantly, what should have been done so baby was born healthy, her mom around to raise her baby and go home with her husband. So those questions have taken me across the United States many, many, many times, meeting with different individuals, hashing out every aspect of labor and delivery. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a midwife. I have no formal medical training, even though my job is all medical. And to be quite honest, I'm a little bit jealous of the medical providers because while they get to see the good and the bad, I only see the bad. And not only do I see the bad, I analyzed the bad for years. So now, 21 years later, it's my mission to get involved before childbirth in hopes of preventing these mistakes and complications that I have seen over and over again. And the reason I can help do this is because in my cases, there are reoccurring issues. There are reoccurring facts. And dads, if you know this information, it can help you protect your wife and your baby. And I know instinctually that's exactly what you want to do. And I understand before this podcast, before I authored my book, you may have not had the resources to do it, but you are part of the answer on how to avoid the mistakes and complications. So please listen carefully as we go over this. So let's see, June 2023, I published my book on how to have a safer childbirth. I would highly recommend you read that book. One important chapter in my book that is so incredibly important is actually on my website, ginamundy.com, and you can download it, share it, whatever you want to do with it, and it is all free. And this is why it is important. That chapter lists the lessons that we can learn from the baby cases. As a lesson, these are things that we can learn from the past to prevent them from happening in the future. So that is one of the reasons that chapter stays on my website for free. These are lessons from the families, the delivery teams, and the medical experts that every family really needs to know. But chapter 7 of my book is really for the dads. Chapter 7 of my book is called The Baby Advocate. And this is like a second set of eyes on mom and baby. Keep in mind, when mom, or I should say wife, I always refer to moms as moms, but wife is in labor, she's in a different state of mind. She needs to focus mentally and physically on delivering her baby. She needs to stay calm. She needs to stay out of fight or flight mode. And having you as a designated baby advocate, and by being a designated baby advocate, that means that now you know certain things that will help protect her during childbirth and labor, and make sure, again, that these mistakes and complications I've seen do not happen. And that definitely will give her, a sense of calmness, that you're there protecting her. And let me tell you, she will love you so much. So let's go over the 5 things that you need to know. Number 1, you have to understand your delivery team. Your delivery team is responsible for bringing your baby safely into this world. In a legal baby case, It is the delivery team's care that is at issue and analyzed more than any other aspect of the case. Here's the kicker. You have to realize that when you roll up to the hospital that day, your delivery team is typically consists of people who are scheduled to work that day. These are like strangers. You don't really know who they are typically. However, your doctor heads the delivery team, or I should say your wife's doctor heads the delivery team. Here's the other kicker. Might surprise some people, but the doctor is typically not at the hospital. Here's the deal with the doctors. They only typically come in to catch the baby or to check on mom here and there. They do not stay bedside with mom. Bedside is going to be your labor and delivery nurse or sometimes a resident. A resident is like a doctor in training. And it is typically the labor and delivery nurse or the resident who communicates with the doctor, and the doctor then will make, certain recommendations or whatnot. But having a good understanding of what your delivery team is and who will be on it is very important. Chapter 4 of my book will go over this in more detail. But it's important that when you get there, that you like your delivery team. There's 3 types of delivery teams I talk about in my book. Number 1, the dream team. You want the dream team. You want to be comfortable with everybody on your team. You want the labor and delivery nurse who's just born to be a labor and delivery nurse, who knows what she's doing and you like her and whatnot. You want the dream team. That is number 1. That means you like everybody on your team and everything is good. However, the next type of team that I have named is basically the delivery team with a bad apple. And that may mean that somebody on your delivery team you're not a fan of. And again, in my book, I'm like, okay, if you're not a fan of, let's say, your labor and delivery nurse. Now, let me throw this out there. Labor and delivery nurses are some of my favorite people ever. You get a good labor and delivery nurse, you will be a great position. But just like every profession, there are labor and delivery nurses who are not great. If you get one of those, because they are bedside, they are most of the time responsible for communicating with your doctor, and they will spend more time with you than anybody else on your delivery team, that if you're not a fan, switch them out. You do this by requesting, either your doctor or charge nurse or whatnot. Again, these are things that my book goes through in more detail, but I'm just letting you know, you gotta like your delivery team. If you don't, it's your responsibility to make some changes. Again, because the delivery team is responsible for bringing your baby safely into this world. Now, the last kind of delivery team I talk about, these are few and far between. These seem to be more prominent in the early years of my career, but the last team is Bush League, and this is where you don't like more than one person on your delivery team. Again, the book will go through, what you need to do in that case. The second thing that every baby advocate should know is how to read your baby's heart rate. Doctors have testified, and I have included the testimony in my book. They will testify that Gina, the only way a baby can talk to me during labor is through their heart rate, which means if you understand your baby's heart rate, it's like they can talk to you. When I first started in this field, the first thing I learned how to do was read the baby's heart rate. And I'll tell you, I remember over 21 years ago when they first put a baby's heart rate down on my desk, and I'm like, what is this? And it was a little intimidating at first, but I would say within an hour and a half, it was very easy to understand exactly what was going on. And you don't need to know the exact ins and outs of every aspect of the baby's heart rate. You just need to know some in general things, because I can tell you, I can look at a baby's heart rate and I can tell you, is baby a rock star or is baby struggling? As a parent, isn't this something you would want to know during the birth of your baby? Another important reason that you need to understand your baby's heart rate is because if there is a concern about your baby, it typically starts with their heart rate. So something is concerning about the baby's heart rate, and then the delivery team or doctor, they may recommend an intervention or they may talk to you and whatnot. So again, being able to understand what the delivery team is saying. When there is a mom that is in labor, a doctor is actually managing two patients, mom and baby. Mom is easy. The doctor can look at mom and be like, ooh, mom looks like she's in pain or she's not feeling good. The doctor that can then ask questions like, what's wrong? Does something hurt? Mom can then communicate back. They can make a diagnosis, a plan, easy peasy. Baby, baby is different. Baby is inside mom. Baby is inside the uterus. The doctor cannot physically assess baby, which is why their heart rate becomes so important during labor and delivery. Chapter 9 will go over the ins and outs of the baby's heart rate and what you need to know so you understand how your baby is doing during labor. Now, keep in mind, the medical community, they definitely want to keep the baby's heart rate to themselves. They are not out there saying, hey, parents, go learn about it or whatnot. But I can tell you, as a childbirth attorney, that is something that, my kids, that's the first thing that they will be that I will teach them, once they're pregnant. Or in my son's case, his wife is pregnant. I find that the baby's heart rate to be extremely, extremely important. And the baby's heart rate, just so you understand, in the childbirth cases is always a big part of the case, which is why it was one of the first things that I learned about childbirth. So I wanted to go over the 3 most common facts and issues in a legal baby case, just to give you an understanding and a taste of what I'm talking about. Again, these are going to be things that are covered in chapter 11 of my book. These are going to be things that you can find nowhere else. There's no other childbirth attorney that has been out there, telling, hey, families, this is what you need to look for and whatnot. So number 1, the most common fact and issue in a legal baby case is the drug Pitocin. Pitocin is the drug that is used to induce a mom's labor. So if your wife is undergoing an induction of labor, you have to understand that that is when the complications and mistakes occur most often. Almost all of my cases involve the drug Pitocin. For this reason, I wrote an entire chapter, chapter 14, on how to have a safe Pitocin induction. This is a drug that I have been analyzing since my first case in February 2003. Whether it's through research, the drug inserts, cross-examining experts, it's been a big part of my career. And here's the deal with the drug. I would say across the board, the doctors believe that Pitocin is safe or can be safely administered during labor and delivery. Where they disagree is how to administer it. So that's why chapter 14 is so extremely important for anybody considering an induction of labor, because it's definitely going to guide families on how to have a safe induction. And again, make sure those complications and mistakes that I've seen for so many years don't occur during the birth of their baby. Number 2, when there is a mistake or there is a complication during labor and delivery, it is almost always after mom's water breaks. Breaking mom's bag of water or your wife's bag of water is an extremely important decision that should be made carefully. If a doctor recommends breaking your wife's bag of water, it's very important to find out from the doctor whether there is a medical reason for doing so, or are they just trying to speed up labor in hopes of being home for dinner. I've heard both. Keeping the bag of water intact can be important for a couple of reasons, but let's think about this. Baby is inside the uterus, hanging out with the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is baby's lifeline. It transfers the oxygen-rich blood that the baby needs to survive. And the placenta. The placenta is like a leech attached to the uterus, and everything is surrounded by the fluid, the amniotic fluid. And it's been this way for obviously many, many months. So when it comes time for labor and the water during labor or before labor, depending on when the water is drained out, when the water drains out, it changes the baby's environment. How does it change the baby's environment? No one knows. Again, we cannot see in the uterus. But sometimes when it changes the environment, it's changing it in a way that makes baby more vulnerable to something happening. Again, making this a very important decision. I like keeping the bag of water intact for as long as possible for this reason. Now, with that said, it becomes very important that once your bag of water does break, that your baby's heart rate is continuously monitored thereafter in order to determine or see if there's kind of any negative effects from that happening. Is the cord getting compressed or whatnot? Because if it does, that's going to change the baby's heart rate. So keeping an eye on the baby's heart rate becomes very important after the bag of water has broken. The last most common mistake or complication in a legal baby case is a busy labor and delivery unit. Keep in mind, babies want to come when babies want to come. And that means a unit can get very busy very fast. It's not like a surgical center that may be down the road. In those cases, a surgical center can schedule patients at 9, 10, 11, 12, and then they staff accordingly. Labor and delivery units do their best to staff accordingly, but sometimes, again, the units get very busy very fast. So you may actually have a really good team, but they may be running hard and they may be running thin. And that means eyes off the prize, which means, again, baby advocate, you're stepping into the role of watching mom and baby almost for the delivery team, and then communicating with the delivery team as needed. Because if they're busy with other patients, they may miss something. Think about it in life. You're moving at the speed of light because you're so busy. It's very important that if you roll up to labor and delivery and you see that the unit is jammed and they're running hard, that you're ready. If you've read my book, if you listen to my podcast, you're ready. But just make sure that you get the delivery team if there are any concerns about mom or baby. Because here's the deal with the delivery team. They're like triage, meaning they're going to beeline for whoever needs them the most. So if something's going on with baby and there's concerns about the baby, if the delivery team knows this, they're going to beeline for that room versus mom who stalled out in labor and her baby's fine. Again, this is a situation where you're working with the delivery team. Again, keeping that second set of eyes on mom and baby and contacting the delivery team when they need to be contacted. It's very important as a baby advocate that you understand what the common facts and issues are in a legal baby case, because if you know and you understand what these are, you're going to be able to advocate more effectively. It's important that every baby advocate go over what is in Chapter 11. If you know what is in Chapter 11, it's going to allow you to advocate more effectively because you don't know what you don't know. The fourth thing that a baby advocate needs to do is provide air support for good decision making. Keep in mind, in these cases, families are only one decision or minutes from a healthy baby. As a childbirth attorney, I cannot emphasize the importance of good decision making. And it's like, again, anything in life. If you understand something, if you understand childbirth, if you understand what's in my book, you're going to be able to make better decisions. So it's like anything in life. If you know and understand something, you're going to make better decisions than if you don't know anything about it. Another reason it is important to provide air support for good decision making is, like I said earlier, mom is the decision maker. Now, keep in mind, during labor, mom is the decision maker. Everything that the delivery team or the doctor says is a recommendation. The delivery team, they are like medical advisors, but mom ultimately makes the decisions. However, going into labor, mom pretty much enters a different state of mind, a state of mind where she needs to focus on mentally and physically delivering baby. I had one doctor testify, and I included this testimony actually again in my book, is that the doctor testified that because moms do go into a different state of mind, they need to be given all of their options about childbirth before they go into labor. That's why you, as baby advocate, become so incredibly important, because you've been through 9 months together, and your wife needs to stay calm. She needs to stay relaxed. And that's where her body and her mind, that's where they're going to focus on delivering baby. She needs to know that she has you to help her make those good decisions. And again, like I said, it's like anything in life. If you understand something, you're going to help her, and you guys together are going to make better decisions. And actually, if you go to chapter 1 of my book, the very first lesson is you have to learn about childbirth. And this is a lesson from the families, because in almost all of the cases, the families rolled up to the hospital and they hoped for the best. They were guilty of a mindset we all are. Only bad things happen to other people. As an attorney specializing in these cases, I would not recommend rolling up to the hospital and hoping for the best. So while lesson 1 is getting ready and preparing for childbirth, I do have an entire chapter dedicated to what I believe you should know about childbirth, again, to give you a good foundation to make those decisions. And what I included in that chapter about childbirth and what you need to know, I mean, those are the things that I rely on as a childbirth attorney when I get a new case in and I'm trying to figure out, is this good care or is this bad care? So with that said, I'd highly recommend that'd be actually chapter 2 of my book, going over I call it the foundation of labor and delivery. The fifth thing that a good baby advocate needs to do is go over the birth plan, basically with your wife. Find out what she's thinking. And listen, as a childbirth attorney, my spin on a birth plan is a little bit different. It's not so much what's in the plan itself. It's the act of preparing the plan. It's the act of marinating in the different decisions that you guys may have to make together. And I can tell you, and you'll understand it more if you read chapter 6 of my book, which goes over how to prepare a birth plan, what you should think about in a birth plan. But there's an interesting story in there. While writing that chapter, I was getting text messages from somebody I didn't know who she was. She was in labor and delivery, and her doctor had made some recommendations that really shocked her. She didn't know what to think. And, I felt like it was like this element of surprise. Like it took away her ability to focus. And somehow, she ended up on the phone with a childbirth attorney. It's the last thing you want to do is reach out to me and ask me questions, on one of the biggest days of your life. So getting ready will definitely help minimize that element of surprise and help you focus on what your doctor or your delivery team is telling you. But I did find it so incredibly ironic that she was texting me this while I was writing the chapter on how to prepare a birth plan, that I did literally include the story, because it was very interesting that it all happened like it did. But another good thing about having a birth plan is it's something that can be prepared in the comfort of your own home. It can be prepared as you, again, read the book, listen to a podcast, or whatnot. But trying to sort through, sometimes what can be sometimes, kind of alarming information is just not a good idea. Again, on one of the biggest days of your life. And again, that element of surprise, it's going to catch you off guard, limit your ability to focus, and again, inhibit your ability to make those good decisions. Another good part about going through the plan with your wife ahead of time is that you guys are on the same page. The last thing we need to do is get into some kind of argument about what should happen during labor and delivery. That all should be hashed out before you come to the hospital. I would also recommend that you go to one of the prenatal visits with your wife. So I would recommend going to one of the prenatal visits with your wife, taking the plan, going over it with the doctor at the visit and any other doctor who may head the delivery team. Now, in the end, if your wife wants to give the plan to the delivery team, that's great. If she does not, that's her decision. Again, it will definitely help set out her expectations because, again, these are people who are scheduled to work that day who are on your delivery team. But whether she should actually give it to her team or not, I mean, that's her decision. But I can tell you, if she's undergoing an induction of labor with the drug Pitocin, I would definitely recommend giving the birth plan to the delivery team. Because if she's read my book or you've read my book, you would know what to put in there about the Pitocin induction, which is very, important information. So if your wife is actually planning on not doing an induction, she's just going to go spontaneous vaginal birth, all natural, then, maybe to her, it's not as important to give the plan to the delivery team. Now, I could have said this earlier. I didn't, but I do like saying this because I do find this to be very, very important. So Pitocin is the most common fact in a legal baby case. What's the flip side? Flip side is natural, spontaneous vaginal birth, skip the drugs. Those cases are few and far between. If there's a mistake or there's a complication, it's typically a labor where Pitocin was involved. I've only had a handful of cases involving, again, spontaneous vaginal birth, skip the drugs. Again, a very important thing for families to know and understand. So I could continue to talk about how to have a safer childbirth for hours on end, but I can tell you in the future, there will be more episodes one-on-one where I do pick certain things that I want families to learn about. However, most things I'm talking about are in my book if you want to pick that up if the episodes are not out yet. But thank you for tuning in, everybody, to this episode of the Childbirth Attorney podcast. I know that even just listening to this episode alone is going to give you some knowledge and understanding that first, mistakes and complications do occur. But more importantly, things you need to do to make sure it does not happen during the birth of your baby. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe below. You can follow me on Instagram at Gina Mundy. If you want to find anything out about me or my mission to help families have a healthy baby, the most updated place for that is always my website, ginamundy.com. Until next time, take care, hug your kiddos, and enjoy life.